Another thing that we can do with borders is add an image. So instead of making it a color, it can actually be made from an image. It's pretty interesting how this happens. So let's play with it a little bit here. So the properties for border image are a URL, and that says which image file to use, right? And then the next one is a slice, and that's how big to slice from the image. And then the last one is what to repeat. And we can make a lot of changes for these as we go. So if we demonstrate this, here's what the image looks like. So this is when it says get the border.png, this is what that image looks like. And so when we do slice, that says how many, if you don't have a unit, it means how many pixels to slice it. And what it does is it divides the image into 9 pieces. And those pieces are a corner, 4 corners, 1, 2, 3, 4 corners, and then 4 sides, 1, 2, 3, 4 sides, and then the middle, what's left in the middle. And the middle will be transparent, which means it won't show at all. There is a way to make it fill if you want, so you can set it to fill, but by default, the middle is dropped. So you don't count the middle, you won't use the middle, you won't see it, it'll be transparent. So let's do a couple of things here to play with this. Notice how these look very different, even though they're set the same. So a couple of things. You need to set the width and the style of the border before this will work. Remember that border is none, so no matter what we do to it, if it's none, it won't display. So you need to set the border style, and then you need to say how wide it is. Now this makes a difference because no matter what image we're using, we get to say how big we want it to be. So here, watch that top one and see how now it's really big, right? So we can make it whatever size we want, and that's important that you set the size. So there's a 20 pixel width, and here's a 10 pixel. Now the difference between these two is how it's repeating that middle. So if you say that what we're doing is, notice that both of these are using a slice of 30 pixels. So what it's doing is it's taking 30 pixels for the corner, and it makes them square, and 30 pixels for the corner. So notice how they've made this to exactly match that diamond. So we can look at that and we can say, okay, those diamonds are 30 pixels big. So the image itself would be 90 by 90. So that'll help us kind of figure things out. So the slice is, it slices 30 pixels for the corner, 30 pixels for that corner, 30 pixels for that corner, and 30 pixels for that corner. And then down the side, it will slice it at 30 pixels. But the side doesn't include the corners. So it's just from where the corner left off to where the other corner left off. And then the repeat, so here we have each of the corners that are 30 pixels by 30 pixels. Then we have that middle, the sides that are made up of that yellow diamond, and they just repeat. Now, if we can put it in here, a couple of things. We can put, well, let me do the repeat. Well, here we see the round. Well, I'm going to do repeat and stretch. So here, this one says just repeat it over and over and over again. And this one says stretch it. So it only uses one side image and it stretches it. And here, it takes the side image and it repeats, repeats, repeats. And what we're doing here is we're seeing that it doesn't land exactly on, right? We're seeing 1, 2, 3, plus a portion of an image and a portion of an image. And that's what repeat does. It'll just repeat it, it centers it, but it might clip the edge because it might not fill it evenly. So if you want it to be filled evenly, you have 2 choices. And one is to round, and that says, okay, well, we'll squish the image or expand the image so it fits exactly. So these diamonds are a little bit different width than these because it just needs to make each side divide evenly so it finishes it. The other one is to put a space. So if we do a space, then it puts gaps between it to fill it up. So that again, it ends on a complete image, but it puts some spacing between it. So those are your options for repeat and stretch, right? So 3 different kinds of repeat and a stretch. Now, there are some interesting things that you can do with how much you do here. You can also choose, instead of certain pixels, you can do a percent. So if I do 30%, I'm going to get a little bit different. Let me put this on round. And notice what we get there. So if I take 30% for the corners, right, it's not quite the same. So that leaves 30% for each corner, and then the middle one is 40%. So the 30% cuts off just a little bit of that orange diamond, and it leaves it for the side. So when you get 40% in the middle for the sides, you get that little teeny piece of the orange in there. And notice these are two little pieces of orange bumped up together, right? Because it's a straight line, so it'll just be a triangle. But when you put two triangles together, you get that diamond look. And notice how that diamond is cut off a little bit. And that has to do with because we're only picking up 30%, right? And so it clips off a little bit of that diamond because that diamond is actually 33% of the image. So we're missing just the very tip of that. Now, it's harder to tell that we're missing the tip of the corner because because the side one is filling it in. So let's see if we can get this to show if we do repeat. Oh, we might be able to do it with stretch too. Okay, now see when it repeats, it doesn't quite fit, but there. So now you can see that corner didn't pick up the little corners of that diamond because it's only 30%. This is just really tricky how it splits it into so many different ways. Now, this is kind of fun. If we do 50%, now think about this. It's going to take 50% for the corner, and 50% for the corner, 50% for the corner, 50% for the corner. And let's see what happens. This is fun. Turns out if you take 50% for each corner, there's nothing left for the sides. And so it really becomes nothing. And so that's kind of an interesting thing to do. You can do 100%. And now it will take 100% for each corner. I'm going to make this bigger so we can see it. Anyway, you can play with this just to see what the different things that you can do. Notice that every corner gets filled. But if there's nothing left after the corners are left, then there's nothing that goes along. There's nothing left for the sides. So here, we're taking 75% for this corner, 75% for this corner. So the corners can take more than their fair share, right? So you get it repeated in some. Anyway, play with this. This is a fun thing to play with in a border image property. And in the W3 schools, try it out. You can just really play around with these corners and see what it comes up with, right? Play around with these properties and see what they do.